Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World Daily with me, John Jordan. So news at the start of this week was that Stalker 2 was having NFTs, and the news at the end of the week is Stalker 2 is not having NFTs. So this is, I think, pretty interesting in terms of the sort of way developers are thinking and the way that fans are thinking. And actually, despite being very pro NFTs and blockchain, as you'd expect, I think this is, this is a good thing in a way. For the industry to get people thinking a bit more deeply about it. So for me, what was happening here with Stalker 2 was a big PC game, much anticipated. First Stalker came out over 10 years ago and was a really sort of seminal game in terms of big sort of open world PC games. And so people have been waiting around for Stalker 2 for a while. And it's coming out in April. But the start of this week, suddenly the game developer announced that this game was going to have NFTs in it. So there's a lot of people have been excited about this game because it's a kind of great shooter game and all the sort of lore that goes around the kind of whole Chernobyl kind of theme and everything like that. And the Stalker, obviously the Stalker comes from some sci-fi stories, and there was some famous films, Tarkovsky film, that sort of played into the narrative anyway. So there's lots of people interested in this really cool game, and then suddenly the developer goes, we're going to have NFTs in it. So that wasn't good positioning from the developer. And obviously the developer has, in a sense, sort of bolted on these NFTs. Now, personally, I don't have a problem with that. These are going to be aesthetic NFTs. So they're going to be things like tattoos and skins, gun skins, and all that sort of stuff. And they had some actually really interesting ideas of what they were going to do there. There's going to be sort of breeding mechanics and sort of some cool stuff going on. But clearly, to sort of launch this on the community, particularly at a time when the community is very sort of up in arms about NFTs because of all the Ubisoft stuff. You can kind of see how this sort of, people who are really angry at Ubisoft, and that one's still rumbling on, just immediately sort of switch their attention on another target over here. We're going to, this is even more exciting. We can have a go at NFTs from this other game. And, Ubisoft, for all the sort of ire they've created, have gone about it in a very sort of sensible way. They have a very locked down sort of blockchain system. They're not selling them; they're giving them away for free, and people can trade them. And they're effectively giving people digital items to sell if they want to. If you don't want them, you don't have to get them. It's very sort of optional, which I think is the way lots of developers are going to go now, particularly if you're trying to put NFTs in an existing game. So I think that was sort of the situation where they sort of, the Stalker dev team sort of just walked into this really bad time situation, and obviously have basically just said, no, we're not going to do it anymore. And that to me sort of shows that they weren't very committed to this in the first place. This was something they probably thought was sort of interesting from a tech point of view, could make them a bit of money, might sort of get them some more users or something. And they were sort of coming at it from exactly the wrong point of view. And I don't think they were very committed to why they were using NFTs and how NFTs made the game any better. So in a sense, I personally think Stalker would have been better with NFTs. I would have probably played it with NFTs. I probably won't play it without NFTs. But obviously I'm a very odd individual from on that basis. And I think sort of the outcome is now that people won't just be trying to bolt on NFTs to games. People are going to have to think more seriously about how they're using NFTs, and I think that's probably, that is definitely a good thing, and how they're using blockchain. So I think we're going to see a better quality of product, and I think we're particularly going to see a better communication between developers and player base around what they're going to do. And probably this will put back the sort of the way of retrospectively fitting NFTs to existing games. People will have to think a bit more about that. I think we were going to see a lot of that because that's like low hanging fruit. I think we're going to have to see some rethinks of that. And from my point of view, I kind of think the Ubisoft way is exactly the sort of smartest way to go. You basically give people some stuff, happen to be NFTs. They're not buying it; they're just getting it for free. Like they get loads of free, skins, or they buy skins or whatever. You can sort of load it into the system, and maybe you don't even tell them it's NFTs. Maybe they just have a marketplace where they can trade these things. Maybe you don't even use blockchain to do that. Maybe you do that in a centralized server just to begin with. I think there's problems with that, but maybe that's the sort of way people will go. So I think it's interesting. Let's have a quick look down at the comments. Here we go. People saying NFTs suck. There we go. All the usual memes. Here's a new NFT. Please screenshot it. But good Bitcoin Louis. Obviously, I'm going to get on my Twitter feed. I'm going to get more of the sort of pro Bitcoin stuff being highlighted here. So Bitcoin Louis is pretty well known. I think this also creates the opportunity for people who are pro NFTs to actually talk about it, and actually we've seen that in some of the Ubisoft stuff as well. So here we go, kind of stuff about we're destroying the Earth. Actually, the interesting stuff about the NFTs on Stalker 2 was they were actually running on like an Ethereum sort of side chain, which wasn't proof of work as far as I understand the tech. So it wasn't actually sort of environmentally bad, and obviously Ubisoft's using Tezos. So there we go. All the NFT bros, well, there we go. So it is sort of funny that the explanations are happening on the pro NFT side, and on the anti NFT side, it's all the usual sort of sort of FU sort of stuff. It's interesting. So there is a bit of debate going on here. So someone's pointing out that this is going to help the company make better games. And I think the other sort of general thing is, as all games companies start having to put NFTs in there or wanting to experiment, and I think all of them are going to be putting stuff in there. Then this sort of toxicity, if there's literally 100 games out there with NFTs, they may choose one to all focus their fire on. But basically, this stuff's just going to happen anyway. And as this point out here, there was this sort of also issue with the developer GSC World Games, who basically, after the Stalker, the first Stalker game came out, there was a big sort of bust up there, and a whole bunch of the sort of core developers left and formed this other studio that did the Metro games, which are sort of very similar to. So there is a sort of a sort of backstory here about some people don't like that developer very much, or feel like they haven't sort of been true to the sort of original sort of dev team of the fan base. There we go. See, good people here didn't even know they were doing it. So, and everyone hates Ubisoft at the moment, clearly, because all the other stuff that's gone on supposedly with Ubisoft. I mean, the other thing is there is such toxicity at the moment about people about games. So everyone hates Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, of course. Everyone hates EA because everyone always hates EA. Ubisoft have had a lot of grief for a long time. I mean, there's basically games Twitter just actually hates game developers most of the time, or it enjoys slagging them off. Also, I mean, interesting stuff here about Steam. So obviously Steam doesn't allow NFTs, but Epic, the Epic Game Store does. So I think there'll be some interesting dynamics around that, where maybe we will see some, Epic maybe heavily promoting some cool games with NFTs because they know they can't go on Steam. So it is quite interesting, and I think despite this sort of level of debate on one side, I do think any level of debate does allow a certain level of people to actually have decent conversations around this sort of stuff, even though it's not the majority of what's going on. And I think we see a similar thing. I'm not going to go into it in this video particularly, but similar thing with Peter Molyneux and his NFT thing, and people are being very sort of weird about that, but they were sort of weird about Peter Molyneux anyway. So it's sort of playing in the NFT stuff is particularly playing into some of the old sort of narratives that people have had around games, and I think a lot of this stuff is, I call it sort of faux rage. I think when people start playing games with NFTs in there, and they basically realise it's just digital items that they can actually trade, a lot of this stuff will go away. So in a sense, I still think sort of the more toxic the opposition to NFTs and blockchains, the weaker it becomes, because I know sort of like some quite good arguments against sort of blockchain in games, but I mean I think blockchain games in the round are very positive for the industry, but there's definitely some sort of issues still to be overcome. But the people who are just complaining about destroying the planet, they don't know the industry deep enough to actually know what better arguments are. So anyway, we will see what happens. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Blockchain Gaming World, tracking the ever explosive ups and downs of the sector. So please subscribe to the channel, keep it here, and see you next time.